Thank you so much, Linda, for that introduction. I'm like, who's this lady that she's talking about? It's so wonderful to be here and see all these faces and even tiles. I'm going to keep everybody in gallery view. So I really appreciate everybody's time, because I know during the day we're all really busy, and I also think that when we can make time to learn from other people, learn from other women, be inspired, it's actually productive, which is sort of where I take the basis, for my book and for my life. It's like this undoing of so much conditioning, of so many shoulds around, everything, and just taking every little should and every little story and unraveling it and finding like what my true sense of anything is. So, I know in my life, I make a lot of space. I make a lot of time. Like if you try to book a time in my calendar, it might be out quite a bit. And it's not because my calendar is packed with calls, but it's packed with time that I give myself to do maybe like other kind of work, or just no work at all. Maybe it's because I want to go for a walk and I make sure that I get my walk in that day, or, whatever it is. And so all of this to say, I really appreciate what goes into making a choice like this. So, I was thinking about this a lot, like, should I prepare a PowerPoint? Should I just do more like teaching? And then I landed on the thing that feels the best for me, which is to show up and have a conversation and engage a little bit, and tell you a little bit about, maybe a little bit about my story. But since we're talking about authority through authenticity, I'm going to ask you a question first, because this is where it all begins, in a space of self-inquiry. And the work is always dismantling what we believe to be true. And most of that comes down to definitions. So my question to you is, what do you believe authority is? Like, just what is authority to you? What have you been taught authority is? What does authority mean to you? And if you want to throw it in the chat, that would be really great. Like, and it's not right or wrong, right? Because we know that authority is, a lot of times it's top down. It's how the world has been built for a really long time. And while everybody's kind of putting their own definitions of it in, if you look it up in the dictionary, authority is the power or the right to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience, which is insane. Or a person or organization having power or control, in particular, typically political or administrative sphere. So it's like this power to influence or command thought, opinion, or behavior. Now, if you feel into this powers, okay, higher power and wisdom, sovereignty, there's these other forms of it, inspiration. So when we read the dictionary term for authority, if you feel in your body how that lands, how does that land for you? Like for me, it lands as constricting. It lands as like, I better watch out. I better get small. It lands in my body as just, demanding. Like it lands in a way that doesn't feel good. And the reason is that, at least for me, and I'm curious, and this is a question for you to really embody as we go through this, like, authority is external. We've been taught, and the world has been built on authority being external. And think about what it's going to take for authority to be reversed inward, right? It's going to take our awareness for that to happen. And so when I talk about authority through authenticity, I'm actually talking about a total dismantling of this idea that authority is A, outside of us, and B, that it has anything to do with control of or control over someone else or a group of people. Even control over how we appear to others. Because to uphold that kind of authority means that we have to pretend real hard to be infallible, to be perfect. To maintain that kind of authority and power and control means that something's got to play in where you have to make other people feel smaller and less than. That's traditional authority, right? Traditional as defined. My invitation and the way that I try to live every day is that, and this is a total dismantling, like it's an inner dismantling all the time of like these programs that make me feel or think or believe that is the system, when in fact it's not a system. I prefer to think of authority as an inner space, and inner authority to me, which is this place inside that says, guess what? I am the only authority in my life. Nobody else has control over me or of me. I'm the only one. And so I have to source all of my authority from within. And that can be honestly like the hardest thing to do because we're so used to seeking answers outside. What do they think? What is that going to look like? What is this? It's also like, oh, I can't get this because, well, they're up, I'm up against them. They're my fault. Like there's all these like interplays that actually keep us in a disempowered state. We actually enter a victim mentality that puts us under and puts somebody over. Now, authority through authenticity, and this is the hard part, is to be authentic means to know yourself so well that you're unafraid and especially unashamed to be 100% of who you are. And sometimes authenticity gets played out as eccentricism or like overdoing it. Like you might see somebody, oh, I'm authentic in like their party hat, that's a performance. Authenticity most of the time is an extremely vulnerable state. It's an extremely vulnerable state of saying, I'm actually not sure. I don't know. This is how I feel. These are my boundaries. I'm scared to say this. Authenticity is being willing to face a lot of inner discomfort and potential outer repercussions for standing your ground and being that for others as well as for yourself. And so to me, I like to redefine leadership entirely as I am leading myself. If I inspire others through my leadership, right? If I want to inspire people to get involved in a cause or do something, that's inspiration. It's a real redefinition of leadership as well, because leadership has been so tied into authority that we actually have to extricate it away from that top-down command and control approach and say, if I'm going to lead others, I can only lead them as far as I'm willing to lead myself. And I have to lead myself within. I have to source my own answers so that others can source their own answers. And the closer I get to my true nature, which is a daily constant task, the closer I understand that I'm a constant work in progress, and so is everybody else. So this idea of having power or control over somebody else, it disappears because you're so busy figuring your own self out and honoring yourself that you don't have time to tell somebody else who they should be and what they should do. You're focused on who am I? What are my desires? What are my dreams? What are my inspirations? And what can I do to make it happen? And if I need to bring people together, like Linda brings this amazing group of people together, that's a form of leadership. She's not telling you what to do. She's inviting you to show up right? This safe, sacred, amazing space is to show up fully as who we are. And that's the scariest thing in the world. Because we're so afraid of, well, what will other people think? And what that triggers, what that could potentially like trigger within us. So this is this concept that for me is so important around integrity. And the integrity is, I want to live as an undivided human being. I want to live as an undivided whole person. I know myself. I allow my inner authority, my soul, my higher self, my faith to be who I am, especially in business. I'm not in politics. I think that would be an even tougher playground to really show up without being dogmatic, right? This is not about religion. This is about faith. This is about the belief and the understanding and the knowing that we are not just our personality, that we are not the role. Like, we choose to do something, but who we are, the beingness, can only be sourced from within. And we've been separated from that for so long that to me, that to be in integrity means to be integrity with myself. And how often do we dishonor ourselves to, survive? And this, for women, historically, and we carry this in our DNA, we carry this in our genes, we carry this in our energy body. We are undoing centuries, millennia of conditioning that's told us, stay small, play small, be quiet, be nice. I hate the word nice. Seriously, we need to stop being nice, and we need to really start being really real. And that's challenging. But if we can do that in a space like this, then I give permission to you to be 100% of who you are, because I'm not trying to tell you who you should be. I know who I am, and I give permission to myself to be myself. So I want you to give permission to yourself to be yourself. And the more we do that, we give all of us permission. And then all of a sudden, we're all awake and we're aware and we're taking action because we don't like the injustice. We don't like what we see, and we know that we can change it. And one of the most important things that's happened in my life is that when I really started waking up to understanding that, like, I'm not just this role. I don't have to just like follow the rules, my ambition, my career, all that kind of stuff, is that I can actually use that as a tool for change. I can stay in the business world with all of the spirit that runs through me, and I can make a change from the inside, because there's so much going on in the world, and we really need to take action. So when I had like my true big spiritual, like my personality, my ego just was destroyed. And this was around career and identity. I thought I could never go back to business because I thought the two things were very separate. That like, as I'm waking up spiritually, there's no way that I could go back to this material world. And as I explored all that happening, in like the spiritual community and the spiritual world, where I found a lot of support that I needed, because it was a bad situation for me. And I was just like, I couldn't even language, and like language is my thing. I could not language what was going on. But I was over here and I was like, I can't do anything with this because I need to be over here doing something with it. And I made a choice to come back into the business world because that was the right choice for me. And it was not rational in my head. I was like, you're not supposed to be in business. Like these weird stories that I was like, okay, let me look at the story and really examine the story and say, well, that's dumb. Why can't I be in business? Why can't I make a change from the inside? Why can't I talk about spirituality? Why can't I talk about faith? Because I had none and I had to find it. And that was part of my journey. And so, I'm in private equity. I invest. I want people to invest. I think it's really important to invest. I think it's really important to use the power that we do have to make a change within a system that is not built to empower us. We need to empower ourselves and empower each other. And if I know something that can help somebody, then I want to share that. And so I'm personally passionate in the business world and the investing side, especially for women, to get you, like, to show you how important it is to be investing and doing more with your money so that we're not always just working. Because that system is not built for us, which maybe is a topic for another time. But this is, to me, the space of authority is the space where I know myself and I continue to show up as myself. And it's not always easy because we're running so many different stories. And I'll give like a really quick example, and then I want to like interact with everybody. I was really frustrated about something last week. And I told myself this story about how other people don't listen to me, about how, because I'm very visionary. That's like kind of like an incredible gift that I have. Like I can very ahead of my time on things. And so it's often challenging to explain that to people and not get their, I don't know if it's approval or validation, but it's just like, if they don't get it, I get frustrated and then I feel thwarted. And so I was telling myself all these stories about this. And then I realized, like, I'm just wanting to complain right now. I was like, okay, wow. So that's a story that I'm telling myself. I'm like, oh, well, is it true? Because what I was doing is I was going into an old modality of being that is in a way it can seem easier to uphold the existing story. In yogic language, it's called a samskara. And in like neurobiology, it's like a neural pathway where we run the same story, we run the same thought, or we run the same belief constantly. And it's like a well-worn path in our brain. It's called a samskara. And so we're always going to take the well-worn path because it's easier to take the well-worn path. Even if it puts us in misery, it's easier to take the well-worn path. But the brain is plastic. And so if you think about that well-worn path in a forest or a meadow, if you stop taking that well-worn path and go on to another one, nature will grow over that path and your new path becomes the right path. But it's having the awareness to notice that is really important. And so you can change your fate and your destiny by choice, which is why the self-awareness piece is so very, very important. So here I am telling myself the story about how I can't get other people to get along with my vision, all this kind of stuff. And then I just had this moment of hilarity of like, do you realize the story you're telling yourself? You're just a grumpy old man. Why don't you just find somebody to complain to, get it out of your system? So I did. And I felt great because I just needed to get like something off my chest. But the important thing is I was in a story, and no matter like how, advanced or whatever, like what I'm trying to say is like, this is a nonstop, it's a forever for as long as we're here in this body. It's a forever of undoing the conditioning and like realizing it and taking responsibility for it. And so my responsibility to myself was realizing that I'm telling a story that seems easier than changing a behavior. But the easiest thing out of everything was just to look at it with total compassion. And in my case, to laugh at it and disarm the story entirely instead of like wanting to be right. I was like wanting to be right. And that ties back into authority and it ties back into our conditioning because it's a form of control, but it's false control. Because true control is surrendering to knowing that the answer is actually here within. And I often point to my heart because when I go inside, when I go into my space, it's in the heart where I get my answers. It's never up here. It's always in here. And that's a true answer. The story is up here, but the true answer is in here. And so even as I'm going through all of this, like I was putting myself in a position where somebody else was, more powerful than me because they didn't want to listen to whatever my vision was, that I wanted to be right, that I wanted to be in control. And these are really subversive. These are always really subversive things that the more we get in touch with all aspects of ourselves, and I'm not ashamed, like I'm telling you, like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. We're all working through all this kind of stuff and coming down into a space of, here I am. I'm working on it. I'm getting better. I'm figuring it out. And I am doing my work, because any change that I want to see in the world out there has to begin in here. And that's it. That's authority. That's authenticity. That's how we wake up to who we truly are. And that space of going within, and then having a community or an outside space or safe people to speak to about it, because we can't make a change without taking an action. And we make our inner change by ourselves. Nobody can change us. But I can't change the world by myself. I can do it with others. And the more authentic I am, the more I find my people. And that's how we go out and we do what we need to do. And it doesn't matter what role we're in, what career, what business, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is you're doing is perfect. But your authority, your authenticity, your leadership starts here, and it radiates out there. I kind of think of it like the Care Bear stare. Like, it's gotta start in here, and it goes out. And so that is what I have to say for now about authority through authenticity, about being an awakened leader, about how do we find our joy and our ease and our grace, because it's all in here. And so I would love to kind of open it up and see what y'all think, and have a conversation.
I love that, AdaPia. And I will say that, we've had some really lovely comments in the chat, and I wanted to note a couple of them, if that's okay.
I would love that.
So a couple of the comments that have been made that I think were just really powerful. It looks like, Audrey, you said that you're going through your own journey with this. And if you wanted to share a little bit about some of your learning and the journey that you're going through, that would be lovely.
Well, first of all, I think it's so amazing that this group of women are together, because there's a reason we are together right now. And I feel like we're all searching for these things. And I love that. For myself, 3 years ago, I made a point of meditating every day. I was like, I'm just going to do it 2 minutes in the morning and at night. And just that cycle of learning of who I was and going inward has changed everything. And I'm in modular construction. So there's 10 women in modular construction that I know of in the world right now. That's it. So it's really dominated by, this masculine force and how they integrate their information, and how we don't do it that way. We do it so differently. We want to know, we want to articulate, we want to show love, we want to be caring. And it's a very different cycle from that. And also it's construction in general. So, I love that we're in investing and we're starting to support more women. And I have been this intricate part of trying to bring in more women and trying to support women and trying to make us understand that. And it's only been 3 years. I just turned 50. I wish I would have learned this. I'm teaching this to my daughter now, is finding it inside. Whenever I have any kind of conflict, anything that comes up now, it's all about being centered. It's all about asking myself first. It's all about being quiet. And sometimes the answers don't come immediately, but they do come. And that's how I know I'm being led. And since I've done that for 3 years, I have had more people walk into my life, the right people walk into my life. It's not just we're just telling you this. It comes in action. And so I can't advocate more. I honestly, it was like spirit guided me to this group. I opened up LinkedIn. I would love to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. I feel that there is this underlying spirit of all of us wanting the same thing. And if we can support each other and know that that's the space that we can come from, this authenticity, this arrangement changes, and it helps us to move quicker through where we need to go. And I don't know if any of you watch Gaia, but there is this guy that does the show called it's called Initiation, and it talks about the 7 laws, and it talks about our chakra system and how we have separated ourselves from each other, and now we're starting to see this shift of energy come in, and it's so freaking cool because women are getting it, and we're all loving each other instead of pulling each other apart. So I don't want to take up the rest of this, but I am so proud of you, Linda. I'm so proud of your conversation. And thank you. And I think that if there's a way to keep cultivating this and maybe checking in once a month, I think that even us just connecting can also evolve us to where we need to be. It's like this underlying spiritual like love that will connect in our hearts, that will raise our vibration higher, that will also allow us to be creators and manifest what we want.
I love that, Audrey. Well, I would say that is the whole purpose behind Leadership Global, right? It's an incredible, impactful community of extraordinary women all over the world that are lifting each other up, supporting each other, and unleashing their potential as high-performing, growth-oriented leaders in the definition of leadership that AdaPia just shared with us, which is lovely. And Nita, you also said that, you are working to keep out ants, which is automatic negative thoughts. I thought that was such a beautiful way of expressing that sort of inner voice that sometimes creeps up on all of us, telling us we're not worthy, we're not good enough, we're not ready, we're not valuable, we're not those things that in fact we are. So Nita, I was wondering if you would mind talking a little bit about what you've done to feed yourself positive reaffirmation rather than getting stuck in the ants, which is the automatic negative thoughts.
Thank you, Linda. In fact, I just put down in that you need to peel those layers. So talk to yourself more than you listen to yourself, because if you're listening to yourself, all those negative thoughts come in. And sometimes, it is good to have those negative thoughts, because in fact, we naturally get them, because it's a sense of reacting to those, to say, well, why am I feeling like this? And again, this is what a lot of mindset coaches do, to say, ask yourself, why do you feel like this? And all the way till you kind of say, so what am I going to do about this? Okay. Do I need some help? Do I need to learn something? Okay. So by talking to yourself, as I said, you're feeding those positive words. And so by feeding yourself positive affirmations and positive words, what you're going to get is positive outcomes. Okay. Because if you just constantly listen to those inner thoughts, it's going to be a downward spiral. And so I also said, you've got to drink your own champagne. Okay, so if we're helping other people, and I think Linda said it as well, you've got to help yourself first, which is why they say in the aircrafts, put your life jacket on first before you look after other people. So we have to, and I'm very passionate about self-care. And so, in fact, I'll share a video on LinkedIn tomorrow again. I say we all shouldn't feel selfish about self-care, because by looking after ourselves, we're actually becoming stronger to actually help other people so that we can show up. And so, Linda, what I have been doing is by showing up, by sharing my knowledge, it helps me to bring my confidence up. Otherwise, those negative ants will keep on appearing. And so by showing up, by questioning how I feel, you just naturally rise up. So thank you very much, Linda.
Nita, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. And Patty, you've offered some really great insight too. You can't pour from an empty teacup. I love that. So any thoughts about anything that AdaPia shared with us so far?
Yeah, what occurred to me is that, and this goes back to the time we were little girls, that we are programmed to try and be perfect. We're programmed to be the good girl, go to the good grade, go to the good school, have the good grades, have the good friends. I know if my brother came home with a C or D on his report card, it was time for celebration and he goes out to ice cream. I get an A- or a B and I'm criticized for I didn't get the good grade I should have gotten. I should have gotten an A or an A+. And so that programming and that perfectionism is probably the number one thing holding women back from breaking the glass ceiling, achieving the job of their dreams. And when we've all heard this, we're on the airplane, they say, put your mask on first before you try and take care of the child or someone behind you. The same with taking time for self-care isn't selfish, it's survival. I had a crash and burn, literally rock star to rock bottom event in my life that I talk about pretty freely that inspired me to do what I do today, but it almost killed me. I literally had a doctor tell me I'd be dead at 6 months if I didn't take care of myself. So I learned the hard way. I don't want other women to find themselves on their bathroom floor in tears and sweat, trying to get up the energy to go to the job they love. So I love what you had to say. I really like some of your analogies and stories, and we just need to start shooting ourselves, and we need to get rid of the ants in our life. I love the ants thing. I don't remember who said that, but I love that.
I know, me too. Me too. All right, Brigitte, you said some, I think, really instructive things in the chat too, and seemed to really be inspired by the conversation. So, Bridget, can I ask you if you have any comments? You have to come off mute first, though, my friend.
Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you, AdaPia. What you have said just resonates so much with me because I've been going through deep work for the last year in reflecting myself and finding my path and my passion and my North Star. And what you have said is just, almost brought tears to my eyes because it's so true what you're saying. And also what Audrey said right now, this goes so much along with me, and I love to be part of this community. It's so inspiring, and yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Bridget, you're so sweet. I love this woman. If you guys don't know Bridget, you need to. She's just remarkable. She is just the kindest spirit. I love this woman. And she also happens to be a university professor, and she just launched a global marketing company, Bridget Brands. So FYI. But Ro, I'm going to also ask you, because you've offered such insightful, wonderful comments in the chat as well. And I love your most recent comment where you said, all of this is women embracing their feminine energy and finding the power in it. So do you want to expand on that for a moment?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you. So, yeah, because when you talk about, when you talk about authority, when you really look at it, it's that old adage of the masculine success system that we've inherited. I mean, we as women, we've inherited this dominant masculine system when in reality, authenticity and leadership and all the beautiful things that have been said here today. Oh, my battery's going low. Hold on. All the things that have been said here today really is about, and the wholeness, especially when you mentioned about wholeness, about being whole. Being whole is masculine is balancing our masculine and our feminine. And everything you mentioned here really is a feminine energy. It's our feminine side. And the problem that we've had so many times, the challenges that we've had as women, is because of everything that's been mentioned here, that what we've been taught of not being good and being nice, all of that downplayed and suppressed our feminine side, made it think that we gave that meaning, that shame and that guilt meaning, that it's weak and it's not power, and it doesn't belong in the business world, and it doesn't belong in negotiations and leadership, when we're all finding out that, well, we as women actually make better leaders because of it. And really, when you think about it, even men should be able to embrace this side. If we all, as a human society, embraced and balanced both our feminine side and our masculine side, and come from our heart and tap into our intuition, go into the knowing, go into all the spiritual stuff, we would all be much more productive. We'd all be better. We wouldn't have employee culture problems that we have today, and all of this. So thank you for allowing me to share this. I loved this conversation. I loved everything you said. Sorry I missed the beginning of it, but I didn't get to hear how to pronounce your name. Otherwise, I would have said your name several times already. I'm sorry.
AdaPia, do you have any thoughts about any of the comments that have been made so far?
Oh my God, I have so many. I appreciate everyone's shares so much, because this is how we really change, as well as is saying these things. And when we say them, then we really realize everyone is saying, oh my gosh, I feel the same way. Like, me too. Like, so much of this, it's not new. It's just not necessarily always been said before. It's not new. But it is a new moment in time where a lot is shifting, like energetically, metaphysically, esoterically, like a lot is shifting. And the way that I like to think about this, because Ro, what you brought up too with the wholeness and the masculine and the feminine, part of that wholeness and that integrity is, it's understanding we're fluid. Masculine and feminine, they're qualities, right? They're not glass bottle. Like we're not one or the other. We all have the same traits. Some have been labeled as bad and some have been labeled good in a system that wanted only one way of existence. And the separation is our separation from each other, from ourselves, and from nature and the planet. And the closer we get to those things, men as well, the more we start to realize that we are interconnected. And it doesn't have to be woo or magical or metaphysical, but it's like, look at the impact that, let's be really practical. Look what happened when that ship in the Suez Canal got stuck and it stuck up the supply chain. The whole world was, oh my God, I can't get my stuff. The cost of plastic is going up. The price is going to get passed down to consumers. Like, if that's not interconnectedness, and that's just a really practical, like superficial thing, right? It's not just the interconnectedness on the quantum level, which is true. The work, as I see it, with the masculine and the feminine and all of this, is less about those two things specifically and more about the toxicity that's behind each of them, right? Like there's a these are polarizing words, but there's like a dark and a light. Like there's a dark masculine and there's a dark feminine, there's a light and, or like a divine masculine, if you will. There's like a toxic masculinity, and we have it too. And like part of when I started waking up, I took all of my masculinity because I functioned very well in the masculine and the ambition and the action and this and I started to shame that as wrong. So I went from shaming my feminine to shaming my masculine, and I got nowhere. Right? I just got nowhere, stayed in shame. So then I really had to look at that. And the way I've framed it for myself is I've put my masculine in service to the feminine, because each serves a purpose and they work together, but they have different purposes. Like the feminine is the creative. It's the birthing, it's the abundance. Like the masculine is more of an energetic that brings it forward, if you will. And there's different ways of looking at that. But the important thing is to understand we have a little bit of both. We have all of it. And we also have the shadow of it. And when the shadow comes up, like when the negative thoughts come up or the behavior or whatever it is, it's like the best self-care there is just be really compassionate and say, okay, wow, I just that was nasty. That should, that was probably not the right thing to say or do or whatever, but just be really compassionate, because we're really operating out of a paradigm of dismantling it. We can't dismantle it until we see it and do it and look at it and change it. So the awareness piece is 80% of the puzzle, and allowing ourselves to have the reactions and have the emotions and have all of it and say, okay, is this conducive to the way I really want to feel? And I would say most of us, and you can put it in the chat, how do you really want to feel? I prefer to feel joyful. I prefer to be fulfilled. I prefer, that how do you prefer to feel? And if something isn't conducive to that, then it needs to be examined, and really examined with compassion. And you say, okay, well, why does this exist for me? Why do I believe this to be true? Why do I default to this? And then work to slowly unravel it, you're unweaving in generations of conditioning. And so we have to be really compassionate with ourselves as we do that. I really like to laugh at myself. I think it's one of the most powerful ways of when you're in a place and you feel bad and something, you're angry, whatever it is, just laughing at the ridiculousness sometimes of how seriously we take ourselves, how so much of that, at least in my experience, I don't know if anybody else has this, but sometimes I can just laugh at it, and it just immediately, the energy just leaves my body, and I don't even know what the big deal was anymore. So that's a newer practice for me, because I spent years in a more serious place with it. And that wasn't as easeful nor as graceful as just being able to let it out in a different way. So the work is constant, and this wholeness comes from total self-acceptance and also self-acceptance of the negativity, because the whole ants thing is like, well, now I know I have them. So now what am I going to do about them? And not to feel bad that we have them, and not to shame them, because the more we shame something, the more we keep it inside. Shame is like, let me put it in my body and keep it there, right? Instead of letting it out.
So AdaPia, we have a question from Emily. Emily, you have your hand raised, and I want to be able to give you just a moment to express any question or comment you have and allow AdaPia to respond to that.
Thanks a lot, AdaPia. It was really inspiring. I'm asking about your own, or maybe shared with somebody, life hack, like how you recharging your internal spiritual on other batteries. You know, we have low moments and other. Do you have any techniques that you can share or advice? Because, you know, there's different spiritual techniques, and I'm just wondering how you keep yourself in this wholeness and in this correct mindset. What helps you?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a teeter-totter. I'm not always, but at all. So I think it's actually that. It's like sometimes I get really into things, and one of the things that hinders me the most is when I won't allow myself to feel the emotions, because I'm really resistant to grief. And like, I'm very empathic. So I hurt a lot, because there's a lot that hurts out there. And if I don't let myself feel that, it builds and builds and builds until like something external triggers me to just have a good cry. And there's an important piece of this, which is allowing ourselves to feel all the emotions, which is such a hard practice. And so I have to allow myself to do that. Or if it's anger, I have to let it out. Are
you meditating? Are you meditating?
Yeah, that's different. I mean, that's like, I try to meditate every morning. And that's one type of practice. Another really important practice is to be awake and alive, and to feel, like, to really let yourself feel and express what you're feeling. That is, I have more success with that than with meditation. Because like, meditation is great. I mean, it changes your neural pathways, and it's a mix of things, but we can't forget to be alive.
Exactly.
Right. To really like live it. Because as women too, we're told not to feel, we're told emotions are weak. Men are told not to feel anything. Women are shamed for being for having their emotions. Men are shamed in a different way. I think they kind of have it worse. Like, women are more allowed. Yeah. But if you're in a very masculine sort of operating system, like I am, or, you know, mostly like that's my default, I go into that like, no, I shouldn't be emotional. I shouldn't cry. And that's actually a more centering space, because energetically getting the emotion out of our bodies creates space, and it creates peace in a way that meditation does. But actually, by expressing the emotion and getting it out, it energetically moves it out of the body. And so it's a parallel to meditation. One involves feeling, and the other one involves a stillness. So those are two really important practices. Journaling is an important practice. Having a community of women, or when I have conversations with people, like, I'm not like, oh, how are you? I'm like, who are you? I'm like, let's go. Like, I want to really get into your soul. I really, really want to know you. And I lead often with very vulnerable things that people respond to really well, because they're like, oh, nobody has asked me about myself, or nobody talks this way. Because I'm like, you know, we can get to the business stuff later. I want to know who you are. I really want to know you. So those are just practical practices. And so that's how I find my balance. And self-reflection is my biggest. It's really like I'm constantly babysitting my ego, right? Like, I use that example of, like, I was telling myself that story. I'm like, doing all that. And I'm just like, okay, wow, thing. Like, wow, dude, like, that's not working for me. And I have to examine it, and I have to self-reflect, and then I have to work on it constantly. And
so it's what I name duality exercise. You kind of looking on yourself as creator, and like kind of evaluating what you're doing, like kind of from above, you look at how authentic you are, and if not, you do some adjustment. Yes.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. And look, it's such a personal practice, and everyone is different because we all, we're all so different. So the invitation is to find what works for you. I mean, the whole humor thing for me is new, and it's really hilarious, and I love it. It's so much easier than the way I was doing it. But I see Patty has her hand up as well. I know we're kind of running out of time, so I can't see everybody. So if there's anybody else.
So we'll go to Patty, and then I would love to call on Jim, and then we'll wrap up real quickly.
Yeah, so just real quickly, we've learned so much from brain science and research the last 20 years. And then I put in the chat box Mel Robbins, Robbins, YouTube video on the 5-second rule. She also has a book. So what we've learned from brain programming is those patterns, those shoulds, those answer in our brain are embedded in our brain like a pattern, like a freeway pattern. You got to go a certain direction. And then if you have a negative thought, an ant, and you immediately try to go to a positive affirmation, your brain literally will block it. So what Mel discovered through her research is this 5-second rule. If you have that negative thought, count literally 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, replace it with a positive anchors thought. See yourself being successful doing that, and then and being excited to do it. And the chance of that negative ant turning it into a positive thing is much greater if you interrupt that brain pattern with the 5-second rule. So that was pretty quick, but I put the YouTube link in the chat, and she also has a book called The 5-Second Rule.
Great. Thanks, Patty. Jim, I know that this has been a lot of women sharing their expertise, their experience, their thoughts, their perceptions, but interested in your perspective, given that you are our lone male figure in the conversation today. So anything you want to add? You're welcome to come off mute and just chat with us if you'd like. Okay, Jim may have stepped away. So I tell you what, I just want to say first and foremost, thank you. Thank you so much, not only to AdaPia, who, as I promised, is one of the most inspirational, grounded, incredible leaders that I personally have had the privilege of getting to know this year. And I knew that all of you would respond as you did to her message and to her expertise, to her insight, to her warmth, to her own vulnerability. But I also want to thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of the conversation today to discuss authority through authenticity. I knew that this would be a conversation that would really resonate. And I'm so glad that each and every one of you decided to carve out this hour to be with us today. This was incredibly thought-provoking, inspiring. I think that this was the kind of conversation that's really needed in our community today. And as I noted in the chat periodically, if you're interested in being a part of this incredibly impactful community of extraordinary women like AdaPia and others that are on the call today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me personally. I'd love to tell you more about the incredible women that are creating enormous change in the world, in our culture, in our businesses, in our politics, in our entertainment. These are women that are definitely expanding their influence and growing their legacy through the community of Leadership Global. And I'd love to tell you more about that. If you're interested, please reach out. This is not a hard sell, but I think all women deserve to have a place where they feel valued and cared for and lifted up and supported. And we try to provide that in Leadership Global. So if you're interested in learning more, please don't hesitate to reach out. In the meantime, again, AdaPia, I am so grateful, so deeply appreciative of your willingness to share your experience, your journey, your insight with all of us. And as all of you know, she is a phenomenal speaker, and she is an incredible keynote speaker. So if you're interested in having AdaPia available for your corporation, your company, your teams, please reach out to her directly, and be sure to pick up her book, Productive Intuition, Connecting to the Subtle. She is a phenomenal writer, as she is a gifted orator, a gifted communicator. So please don't hesitate to reach out and grab her book too. So AdaPia, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so, thank you so much. I'm so humbled. My heart is exploding. Thank you so much. This is amazing for everyone. I hope you will connect with me on LinkedIn. My name, just stick it anywhere and I will come up so you can find me. Come and find me. And I really look forward to connecting. Linda, thank you just for your service to the world with this community of women, what you do for everyone. It is inspiring, and I'm just humbled and I'm honored to be here today and to be part of it.